3 hours past midnight on June 6, 1944. Inside a camouflage-netted lorry parked in a hedgerow 2 miles from the chalk cliffs, signalman Jeffrey Kemp sits hunched over a wireless set, watching a rack of glowing valves pulse amber in the darkness. The transmitter draws current from a bank of lead-acid batteries stacked beneath the fold-down table, enough power to punch regimental-level traffic across 20 miles of channel. His Morse key taps out a mundane logistics request. 2nd Canadian Corps Armored Reserve needs fuel Bowsers forward by dawn, routing via Ashford Depot. He logs the timestamp in a grease pencil ledger, 0317 hours, and waits. The reply comes 8 minutes later, clipped and encoded, exactly as rehearsed. Another brick in a vast invisible wall. 60 miles south across black water, the real war is killing real men. Soldiers drown in the surf off Omaha Beach, weighted down by packs and fear. Sappers claw at check hedgehog obstacles under machine gun fire. Tank crews bail from swamped Shermans as the hulls slip beneath the foam. Medics drag screaming wounded above the tide line. Chaos, flesh, steel, the actual invasion grinding forward 1 terrible meter at a time. Yet here, in the narrow cab of a Bedford lorry smelling of canvas and battery acid, duty takes the shape of a lie. Kemp is saving lives by ensuring the Germans believe the Allies will strike somewhere else, later, harder. Every false message he sends is a kind of ammunition. Precision in service of deception. Scripted call signs, timed exchanges, a fictional order of battle performed with the discipline of a Mozart score while Normandy burns in confusion. The weapon is belief. For 5 months, Fortitude South has conjured an entire army group, 1st United States Army Group, commanded by Patton, massing in Kent and Sussex, opposite Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route to the Reich. Inflatable tanks and plywood gliders populate the fields for aerial reconnaissance. But the transmitter net is the skeleton, radio traffic is the pulse. German direction finders plot the call signs on acetate overlays. Analysts in Paris and Berlin read the pattern and judge it genuine. Adolf Hitler keeps 2 panzer divisions idled near Calais, waiting for the main blow that will never fall. This is the story of how a hidden battery of transmitters, a choreographed symphony of operators king phantom orders, and a few 100 pounds of lead and acid bought the Allies not firepower, but time, the scarcest currency of June 1944. We will watch doctrine collide with improvisation, see how lying, the highest form of duty, became, and trace the invisible war that decided the visible one. The guns matter. The ghosts matter more. You cannot defeat an army that does not exist, but you can be destroyed by believing in one. Spring 1944. Allied planners face a calculus written in blood. The landing beaches at Normandy are narrow, exposed, and within reach of German armored reserves. If the panzers roll west in the first 48 hours before the Allies secure a lodgment and bring artillery ashore, the invasion collapses into the surf. The planners need time measured not in days but weeks, enough to dig in, build a port, mass divisions. They cannot win it with firepower. They must buy it with fiction. Operation Bodyguard is the umbrella. Fortitude South is the blade. The target? Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest crossing of the English Channel, 100 miles northeast of the real landing zones. 15 miles of water separate Dover from Cap Grisnez. Thrust from Calais toward Paris would cut the fastest line to the Ruhr. German commanders have fortified the sector accordingly. Minefields, casements, infantry divisions layered deep, 2 panzer divisions in reserve. The deception plan aims to convince Hitler's staff that Normandy, when it comes, is a feint meant to pull strength away before the true blow lands at Calais. If the fiction holds, the panzers stay pinned. If it crumbles, they roll, and the beaches drown. The London Controlling Section scripts the Phantom. 1st United States Army Group, FSAG, a formation that exists only on paper and in the electromagnetic spectrum. Patton in command, Corps headquarters scattered across Kent and Sussex, divisions training for assault. Inflatable Shermans and dummy landing craft dot coastal fields for Luftwaffe reconnaissance, but physical props are not enough. Radio transmitters are the skeleton of the lie. Colonel David Strangeways commands R Force, the deception unit tasked with making FSAG breathe. He knows German signals intelligence listens constantly, plotting call signs, measuring transmission lengths, mapping traffic flow between headquarters. The Phantom must sound real, authentic net discipline, plausible message volumes, the rhythms of an army preparing to move. Any discordance, a call sign out of sequence, a British operator mimicking American procedure poorly, risks exposing the fraud. Realism is survival. Enter Sergeant Andrew Parrish, a composite drawn from the dozens of Royal Signals NCOs seconded to R Force in spring 1944. Parrish is 31, a telecom engineer from Coventry in civilian life, familiar with voltage and impedance, but new to military deception. His war for weeks is cables and batteries. Under canvas tarpaulin stretched between hedgerows, he splices leads from 12-volt batteries to petrol generators, ensuring clean current for transmitter sets. The kit is standard, wireless set number 19 for division to core links, heavier T154 transmitters for long-range traffic. Power is the unglamorous bottleneck. Batteries drain fast, generators are loud and temperamental, requiring baffles and discipline. Parrish learns to think in ampere hours and duty cycles, to swap battery banks without breaking transmission schedules, to nurse generators through cold starts when damp clogs the carburetor. He also learns procedure. British and American radio nets follow different disciplines, encryption tables, authentication codes, the cadence of Morse. Parrish studies transcripts, practices U.S. call sign formats, absorbs the tempo. Precision is doctrine. The entire performance is scripted down to minute-by-minute logs. Yet he knows that across the channel, Normandy will be chaos, units scattered, radios lost in surf, communications breaking under fire. The irony is not lost on him. The fake army runs like clockwork. The real will improvise or die. Parallel to the radio net, MI5 orchestrates a human channel. Juan Pujol Garcia, codenamed Garbo, is a Spanish double agent run by British intelligence, trusted implicitly by the Abwehr in Madrid. Garbo commands a fictional network of subagents across Britain, feeding reports to his German handlers. In April and May, he sends meticulous dispatches, troop movements observed near Dover, insignia spotted in pubs, a Canadian unit repainted with American markings. Each report harmonizes with the radio traffic. The Germans cross-reference. Garbo says 7th U.S. Corps is near Folkestone. Direction finders plot a 7th Corps call sign transmitting from that grid. The threads braid into a single false narrative. The inciting moment arrives in late May. Strangeways authorizes the transmitter net to go live. Across Kent, operators begin keying traffic at Corps scale, fuel requisitions, vehicle movement schedules, artillery fire missions for battalions that do not exist. Call signs rotate on predetermined schedules. Message lengths and frequencies mirror genuine formations observed in North Africa and Italy. Radio silence windows mimic security before assault. The Phantom draws breath and begins to speak. Parrish works 16-hour shifts, swapping batteries in darkness, logging transmission times, troubleshooting voltage sags. Doctrine demands perfection. The plan allows zero room for improvisation on the deception side, as the real invasion will demand nothing but. He thinks sometimes about the men who will wade ashore at Normandy, trusting the panzers will stay away. His contribution is invisible, measured in kilowatt hours and discipline. But if the batteries fail, if a generator coughs out mid-transmission and breaks the rhythm, the illusion fractures. Late May 1944. Across Kent and Sussex, the transmitter net scales to operational tempo. What began as a handful of lorry-mounted sets now swells to dozens, each positioned to suggest a different formation within 1st United States Army Group's sprawling order of battle. The trucks move every 48 to 72 hours, just often enough to defeat German direction-finding triangulation, but not so often as to suggest panic. Inside each vehicle, operators key traffic timed to the quarter hour, fuel requisitions for armor battalions, engineer reports on bridging equipment inventories, medical supply requests routed through Corps headquarters. The message content is mundane by design. Armies preparing for invasion do not broadcast their intentions. They coordinate logistics. The trick is volume and pattern. Enough chatter to suggest formations rotating through staging areas, supply echelons building tonnage, engineers surveying crossing points on rivers FUSAG will never assault. Sergeant Parrish now manages a rotating pool of 6 operators working 3 trucks dispersed in a triangle between Ashford and Folkestone. His logbook tracks transmission windows, battery swap schedules, and generator runtime. Each operator is assigned a fist, the individual rhythm and cadence of Morse keying, as distinctive as handwriting. The Germans know this. If a call sign suddenly transmits with a different fist, they smell substitution, perhaps deception. Parrish drills his men to maintain consistency. One operator, Corporal Hayes, mimics an American divisional signals officer with such precision that Parrish jokes he could fool Kansas City. Hayes does not laugh. He understands that if his rhythm slips, a Panzer division might roll west. The pressure mounts in early June. Strangeways issues new guidance. Adjust net discipline to mirror Patton's command style. Aggressive, impatient, prone to demanding updates. Traffic tempo increases. Operators are instructed to insert brief, sharp queries into routine exchanges, the kind of chatter that suggests a commander chafing to move. The improvisation is carefully scripted, a paradox Parrish has stopped questioning. Doctrine on the deception side remains rigid. The fiction is that FUSAG itself operates with American dash. The irony sharpens when he recalls that Normandy, once it begins, will shred every communication plan within an hour. Real war is chaos. The fake war runs on Swiss watch precision. A micro-decision crystallizes the tension. Third week of May. Parrish receives a draft message from Air Force headquarters, a long logistical burst, nearly 4 minutes of transmission time, detailing fuel convoy routing for an entire armored division supposedly staged near Canterbury. The message is rich with the kind of granular detail that sells authenticity. Convoy departure at 0430, route via A257 to avoid civilian traffic, arrival at forward dump by 0715. Capacity in gallons specified down to the last jerry can. It is perfect bait. But a 4-minute transmission gives German direction finders time to plot the bearing with precision, narrowing the transmitter's location to a grid square. If they cross-reference aerial reconnaissance and spot no matching vehicle park, the illusion wobbles. Parrish escalates the question. Strangeways weighs the gamble. Realism versus security. In the end, he authorizes the burst, but orders the transmitter moved immediately afterward, a 20-mile leap south before the next scheduled window. The message goes out on May 22nd at 11:47 hours. Parrish's team breaks down the set, loads it onto the Bedford, and relocates to a copse near Hyde in under 90 minutes. 2 days later, decrypted German traffic gleaned by Bletchley Park and passed back to the deceivers reveals that OB West, Oberbefehlhaber West, has logged the transmission and assessed it as a fuel movement for U.S. 17th Armored Division. The entry appears on their intelligence map of Allied dispositions. The gamble paid. The fiction holds. But radio alone is not enough. Garbo feeds the corroboration. On May 28th, he transmits to Madrid a report from a notional subagent, a railway clerk in Dover, describing American troops offloading crated bridging pontoons at the freight depot, equipment consistent with an assault across the strait. On June 1st, another subagent, supposedly a commercial traveler in Folkestone, reports seeing shoulder patches of the 83rd U.S. Infantry Division. Neither subagent exists. The reports are fiction. But German intelligence cross-checks them against the radio traffic and the inflatable tanks photographed by reconnaissance flights. 3 independent sources, all saying the same thing. The narrative converges. OB West's situation map now shows FUSAG as a genuine threat. Patton commanding, 2 Army Corps, multiple divisions, poised opposite Calais, the shortest road to the Reich. Then the real war begins. June 6th, 6:30 a.m. Normandy's beaches are a maelstrom, men clawing at sand under mortar fire, engineers blowing obstacles, radios soaked and silent. Across the channel, Parrish receives new instructions. Surge the traffic. FUSAG must appear to be holding position, waiting for weather to clear over Calais before launching the main assault. Operators hammer the keys. Messages flood the net. Requests for updated meteorological forecasts. Orders delaying embarkation by 24 hours. Queries about channel swell heights off Cap Green-A. The subtext is clear. Normandy is the diversion. Calais is still the objective, just postponed. Simultaneously, the Allies layer radar deception. Operations Glimmer and Taxable unfold in the pre-dawn hours of June 6th. RAF heavy bombers, Stirlings and Lancasters, fly precise oval patterns northeast of the genuine invasion fleet, dropping clouds of window. Thin aluminum foil strips cut to half the wavelength of German Würzburg and Freya radars. Each bundle tumbles through the sky, blooming on enemy scopes as a return indistinguishable from a ship's hull. The bombers creep forward at 7 knots, the speed of a plodding invasion convoy, dropping window in timed salvos. German radar operators at coastal stations near Calais watch their scopes populate with contacts. Dozens of ships, moving in formation, aimed straight at Pas de Calais. Royal Navy orders for the chaff squadrons are brutally specific. Altitude 3,000 feet, speed 120 knots, window release every 45 seconds, formation spacing 800 yards. The crews fly in darkness, vulnerable to flak and night fighters, committed to a pattern that demands mathematical perfection. One Lancaster strays from its orbit and the Phantom fleet fractures. The discipline holds. For hours, the scopes paint a ghost armada. Coastal defense batteries awake, crews scramble, and German naval units prepare to engage a fleet that is foil and wind. At Berchtesgaden, Adolf Hitler sleeps. His staff, bound by doctrine, dare not wake him to authorize the release of armored reserves without his explicit order. When he finally rises late on the morning of June 6th, he learns of Normandy but remains unconvinced. The Führer has studied the intelligence, Garbo's agents, the radio traffic, the aerial reconnaissance of dummy camps. He believes Normandy is the feint. He issues a hold order. 15th Army, concentrated around Pas de Calais, stays in place. The panzer divisions remain idle, engines cold, waiting for Patton. They wait for weeks. 15th Army's situation maps, updated daily through June, continued to chart FUSAG as a strategic threat. Radio traffic persists. Parrish and his operators maintain the fiction, keying messages about regrouping, reinforcement, revised assault timelines. Garbo sends a final masterstroke on June 9th, a message to Madrid, warning that FUSAG is nearly ready, that Normandy was indeed a diversion, and that the Germans must not shift forces west. His handlers forward the warning to Berlin. Hitler reads it and nods. The panzers stay. By the time German high command accepts that Normandy is the true invasion, the Allies have landed 500,000 men, established a lodgment 30 miles deep, and begun the breakout. The window to crush the beaches has closed. The deception's payoff is measured in divisions that never arrived, in counterattacks that never formed, in a bridgehead that held because the enemy believed a lie told in Morse code, aluminum foil, and the phantom hum of generators under canvas. Every claim made here rests on documentary foundations, and the audience deserves to see them. The primary architecture comes from Roger Hesketh's Fortitude, the D-Day Deception Campaign, the official British history written by an officer who helped run the operation and declassified in 1976. Hesketh had access to the planning files, transmission logs, and post-war interrogations that reconstructed German perceptions. His account remains the gold standard, detailed down to individual message timings and call sign rotations, where we describe the radio net's choreography, traffic volumes, frequency shifts, operator discipline. We draw directly from Hesketh's appendices and the London controlling section files now held at the National Archives in Kew. German responses come from their own words. The war diaries of Oberbefehlshaber West and 15th Army Kriegstagebuch, or KTB, record daily situation assessments, intelligence summaries, and forced dispositions. Entries from early June 1944 explicitly reference strong enemy concentrations opposite Pas-de-Calais, citing radio intercepts and agent reports. These diaries, captured after the war and microfilmed by the Allies, provide dated evidence of when and why Hitler's staff kept divisions pinned in the wrong sector. When we say the panzers stayed idle for weeks, the KTB entries tracked their positions mile by mile, day by day, waiting for an invasion that never came. Operations Glimmer and Taxable, the radar deceptions, are documented in Royal Air Force and Admiralty operational files archived at the National Archives and the Imperial War Museum. Flight logs specify aircraft types, window drop intervals, altitudes, and flight paths. Coastal radar plots from German Freya and Würzburg stations, analyzed post-war, show the phantom contacts exactly where the chaff corridors were sown. R.V. Jones, the British scientific intelligence officer who pioneered radar countermeasures, details the physics and planning in Most Secret War, grounding the technical claims in first-hand engineering expertise. Juan Pujol Garcia, Agent Garbo, speaks through MI5's declassified case files designated KV 241 through 249. The files include transcripts of his radio transmissions to Madrid, Abwehr replies, and British intelligence assessments of German trust. Ben McIntyre's Double Cross synthesizes these files into narrative form, cross-referenced with German intercepts decrypted at Bletchley Park. When we describe Garbo's June 9th message warning of Fusog's readiness, the text survives verbatim in the archive. Secondary scholarship sharpens the context. Antony Beevor's D-Day, The Battle for Normandy, and Carlo d'Este's Decision in Normandy provide force movement timelines and casualty estimates, always presented in ranges to reflect historiographic uncertainty. Mary Catherine Barbier's D-Day Deception, Operation Fortitude, and the Normandy Invasion adds operational detail on dummy installations and signals procedures. Where these sources disagree, such as the exact delay imposed on German reserves, or the relative weight of deception versus Hitler's own strategic obsession on Calais, we use conservative phrasing. Accounts suggest, estimates range, the record indicates. Critical distinctions matter. 1st United States Army Group, FUSOG, was a British-run radio deception active before and immediately after D-Day. The U.S. 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, the famous Ghost Army, operated later in the campaign, from Normandy through Germany, using sonic and visual deception closer to front lines. They are related but separate operations. Conflating them is a common error we avoid. Similarly, Pluto, the cross-channel fuel pipeline, played no significant role on D-Day itself. Fuel came ashore in jerry cans for weeks before pipelines mattered. Precision in these details guards credibility. Visual evidence is labeled with care. Radio equipment shown on screen is identified as period-correct analogs, such as the Wireless Set 19 or T1154/R1155 pairs, rather than claimed as the exact units used, since few survive photographed in situ during Fortitude. Maps overlay Fusog dispositions and German intelligence assessments sourced to NRA map-room files and IWM collections, with archive codes cited in lower thirds. When we quote war diary entries or OKW directives, we display the date, source, and file reference so viewers can verify. One historiographic debate deserves acknowledgement. How much did Fortitude alone shape German decisions versus pre-existing doctrine, Hitler's Calais obsession, and poor reconnaissance? Hesketh argues deception was decisive. Some German post-war memoirs downplay it. The honest answer is both mattered. The deception worked because it aligned with what the Germans already wanted to believe and sustained that belief long enough to matter. We present the evidence and let the timeline speak. The waiting kills more surely than shells. Tourcoing, northern France, June 12, 1944. In the operations bunker of 15th Army Headquarters, staff officers update the situation map with grease pencil and mounting unease. 6 days have passed since the Normandy landings. Reports from the front describe savage fighting, beaches choked with Allied materiel, lodgements expanding against stubborn but insufficient resistance. The officers know reinforcements are needed, yet the map before them shows why they cannot move. Opposite Pas-de-Calais, across the narrowest stretch of channel, the intelligence overlay marks 1st United States Army Group in bold strokes. Patton's command, 2 corps, at least 15 divisions staged in Kent and Sussex. Radio intercepts logged daily, agent reports corroborated by aerial reconnaissance, radar plots of convoy formations probing the strait. The assessment is unanimous. Normandy is the diversion. The main blow will fall here, soon, with overwhelming force. 15th Army's mission is to hold position and repel it. Doctrine demands readiness, so they wait. Oberst Hans von Kluge, intelligence officer for 15th Army, reviews the latest intercept summary. Traffic analysis places U.S. 7th Corps near Dover, 3rd Corps farther south near Folkestone. Message volumes have surged since June 6th, fuel requisitions, bridging inquiries, weather updates focused on Calais sector tides and wind. The pattern fits an assault delayed by poor conditions, not cancelled. Von Kluge drafts his assessment for the war diary. Enemy intentions against 15th Army sector remained clear. Strong concentrations confirmed. No indication of redeployment westward. The entry is filed. The panzers stay. At OB West headquarters, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt faces the same intelligence and reaches the same conclusion. Hitler's directive, issued on June 6th and reaffirmed June 9th after a warning from a trusted Abwehr source agent Arabelle, known to the British as Garbo, is unambiguous. Strategic reserves will not move west without explicit Führer authorization. The rationale is sound within the logic of German doctrine. Committing armor prematurely to a secondary front risks catastrophe when the main thrust arrives. Doctrine prizes patience, economy of force, the decisive counterstrike held until the enemy's true intention reveals itself. For the German High Command, rigid adherence to this principle is not paralysis, it is discipline. But the Allies have turned that discipline into a cage. Improvisation might save the Germans. A bold commander, ignoring intelligence, trusting instinct, rushing panzers west on a hunch. The culture does not allow it. Doctrine becomes dogma. The contrast sharpens. While FUSAG's fake war demanded scripted precision, the real Allied invasion thrived on chaos and adaptation. Units landing miles off target, commanders improvising new plans, engineers jerry-rigging solutions under fire. The Germans, meanwhile, remain locked in place by their own thoroughness, waiting for certainty that will never arrive. The wait stretches into weeks. June 15th, 15th Army Diary notes continued high-volume radio traffic, Dover-Calais axis. June 21st, radar stations report intermittent contacts northeast of genuine resupply convoys, attributed to reconnaissance sweeps preceding invasion. June 28th, Abwehr forwards another Garbo report. FUSAG assault timeline delayed again, now estimated early July, pending air superiority. Each entry reinforces the fiction. The panzers idle. Fuel is conserved. Crews drill for the battle that never comes. By mid-July, the illusion begins to fracture. Normandy's lodgment has widened to 60 miles. Allied divisions pour ashore, 500,000 men, then 1 million. Mulberry, artificial harbors, towed across the channel and assembled off Arromanches and Omaha, pump supplies at rates that dwarf pre-invasion estimates. Beach depots stack ammunition, rations, fuel in vast open-air warehouses, guarded only by air superiority. The logistical breathing room bought by Fortitude allows the Allies to absorb losses, replace equipment, and stockpile for breakout. When pipelines Pluto and Dumbo finally come online in late summer, they inherit an infrastructure already robust. The deception's gift was time, and time became tonnage. German reserves begin releasing piecemeal in late July, too late and too weak. The divisions that might have rolled up the beaches on June 7th arrive exhausted after forced marches under Allied air attack, pitted against a lodgment now dug in and armored. The counterstrike doctrine promised never materializes. The strategic cage built by phantom radio nets and foil clouds has done its work. Fortitude's legacy reshapes military thought. Post-war analysis enshrines it as proof that deception, when integrated across signals, visual, and human intelligence channels, can achieve effects no amount of firepower can match. Modern militaries institutionalize the lesson. Electromagnetic order of battle becomes a discipline, with specialists trained to craft false signatures, manipulate enemy collection systems, and weave multi-domain narratives. The battery of transmitters at Dover evolves into satellite spoofing, cyber intrusion, and spectrum dominance. The principle endures. Shape what the enemy believes, and you shape what he does. Yet the moral weight remains. Sergeant Parrish and his operators lied day after day in service of duty. The deception saved lives. Allied soldiers who landed on beaches the panzers never reached. German soldiers spared futile counterattacks. French civilians who might have been crushed under retreating armor. Lying became an act of mercy. The contrast between duty and deception collapses into a harder truth. Sometimes the most honorable thing a soldier can do is convince the enemy of something false. The transmitter hums in the dark, the key taps out fiction, and men live because of it. The battery that isn't a gun fires its last round in late summer 1944. FUSAG dissolves into the truth it always was, nothing. But the Ghost divisions bought the real ones a toehold in Europe, and from that toehold came liberation. The radio war is won. The visible war grinds on, now on terms the Allies can afford. If you want to see how the logic of Fortitude evolved into mobile artistry, inflatable tanks driven by artists, sonic deception teams playing recorded battles through loudspeakers, and the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops conjuring entire divisions within miles of the front, watch our companion microhistory on the Ghost Army. The battery moves. The deception deepens. The war of belief never ends.